Thank you. I now call this regular meeting of the Board of Education to order at 7 p.m. Please call the roll.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Here.
Mrs. McCulloch? Mr. Siegel?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Ms. Stanford?
Here.
With 7 present, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll now take a moment of silence to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. As we start each board meeting, it bears reminding that the mission of Rockford Public Schools is to collaboratively engage all students in a first-class education for a changing world. I would also like to thank Connor, who is in the background. I think Rod might be back there as well, helping to produce the board's broadcast on Channel 20, Zoom, and YouTube Live. So thank you, gentlemen. Just as a friendly reminder to board members, staff, and the public, please make sure you keep your mask on and wear it properly over your mouth and nose even when speaking. And I would ask board members when they are speaking to be as close to their microphone as they can so that we can all hear. We will now ask for board member comments at this time. Are there any board members that have comments for tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to the petitions and communications portion of our meeting, when we invite the public to make comments. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees the rights of citizens to petition their government, as well as provides for freedom of speech. Also, the Illinois School Code requires that there be a time at regular and special meetings for public comment. Thus, we are following those mandates during this petitions and communications portion of our agenda. According to our board policy 2.230, the public comments portion of the meeting is limited to a total of 30 minutes. The board will not respond to comments at this time. If it is appropriate, you'll be contacted in a timely manner by staff in response to your questions. In order to allow sufficient time for the business of the board and to conduct our meetings in an efficient and effective manner, we are requesting that you comply with the guidelines that are posted, and each speaker will be allowed no more than 2 minutes to address the board. It's not appropriate to address individual board members or individual administrators or discuss matters that would otherwise be confidential in such open meetings. We only have one speaker tonight, so that won't be too difficult to keep within the time guidelines. So we thank you for your interest, and we have a clock on the wall to help you with your 2 minutes, and appreciate your cooperation with our guidelines. So we have one speaker tonight. It is Reverend Rebecca White Nugren. And if you would push the button to turn that microphone on and stand close to the mic if you can. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm Rebecca White Nugren, area pastor and mom to 3 children in the district, 6th, 7th, and pre-K. First of all, thank you. None of us signed on to make the adjustments we have been forced to make due to COVID, so thank you for your hours of effort to keep our children safe. I want to tell you how well my 2nd grader is doing because she has a teacher dedicated to her remote classroom. She has large group time, small group time, and work that is assigned specifically for her. Miss Song at Bloom School brings great energy to her teaching, and they are even having fun. Today was Silly Joke Tuesday. Remote school is never ideal, but she's learning, growing, and enjoying her experience. In contrast, we pulled my 6th grader out of Lincoln today. 6th grade teachers and administrator are supportive, kind, smart, creative, and helpful. But the system is broken. I'm here to ask you to change the system so that every student can interact with their teacher live every day in every subject. Currently, there are remote and hybrid students in each class hour. This means the teachers have to create 2 sets of lesson plans for each class. That is unfair and unproductive. My remote learner received the week's lessons on Monday, but did not interact with her teacher live until Tuesday. More than once, she had to redo a lesson that she did on Monday after hearing the instructions on Tuesday. 2 hours of live instruction in a subject per week is not enough, not for remote or hybrid learners. The system is broken for teachers and students, and my guess is the numbers will begin to show it. It doesn't have to be this way. While it might require a FedEx logistic master to figure it out, each hour could be solely remote or hybrid learners, and teachers could interact live with their students every day. Much like the physical classroom, they present the lesson and then let the students work independently. They could send them to the Zoom waiting room and pull them back one by one to see if they had questions, just like a teacher does walking around a physical room. This is not a teacher issue or a resources issue. This is a logistics problem, and I urge you to fix it before more and more children fall further behind and the teachers continue to be overburdened. I'm happy to help in any way I can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report, and Dr. Jarrett is zooming in, and Dr. Vosberg is at the big kids table today. So, okay, Dr. Jarrett.
Hey Ken, I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Miss being there with the board and the community, but happy to check in virtually here. I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. And
Aaron,
I do want.
Aaron,
yes.
We're having a little trouble hearing you.
How are we doing now?
Still.
You know what? I'll turn it over to Dr. Vosberg.
Now we're hearing you fine.
Okay.
Fix.
All right, thank you. Well, again, thank you to the board. My apologies that I'm not able to be there in person this evening, but I am enjoying taking the meeting in remotely. The only remarks I would like to make this evening is to remind the board I'm still looking for feedback on CEO-centric targets, and that I will be bringing forward a district scorecard proposal as part of my evaluation tool for the upcoming school year. I also want to remind the board that I will be bringing forward for further discussion during the superintendent's comments on the October 27th meeting a more detailed presentation regarding the school performance framework that Mr. Rollins introduced in the planning committee. We're going to be talking about the school scorecard. We will be talking about quality peer review, and we will be talking about standards of service and practice. So look forward to having those more detailed conversations and being back with you in person at the next meeting. Thank you, Mr. Scrivano, and to the board for some time this evening.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rollins, will you now present the items that proceeded through the Planning and Development Committee section of the Committee of the Whole?
So this is the single action item that came through the Planning and Development Committee, and as we discussed, it would be a change to our policy 4.10. And as we discussed, the school code only requires that school districts finalize their budgets and adopt their budgets prior to September 30th. The school district at some point in the far distant past had adopted a policy of adopting its final budget prior to June 30th. And Ms. Yar has suggested, based on the one-year exception that we did last year because of COVID, she actually liked the way that worked better. She feels everything flows better, and the administration is recommending that we actually change our policy to conform to the school code rather than having an earlier deadline, and providing that we would finalize our budget no later than the second school board meeting in September, which would be prior to September 30th. And then, as we discussed at the Committee of the Whole meeting, that would include then, prior to the beginning of the school's fiscal year on July 1st, adopting a resolution allowing the administration to expend up to 25% of the tentative budget so that they have authorization to actually start expenditures before we adopt the full budget. So I don't know if I make that motion or if somebody else, I make that motion. So I move, this is a new procedure for us.
Okay.
I move that we amend Board Policy 4.10, Operations, Fiscal, and Business Management, as attached to your board docs information.
Second.
There is a second by Mr. Connor. Questions or discussions on this motion? Seeing none, I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of the revision to Board Policy 4.10.
Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch? Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we're now on to board president's announcements. I just wanted to give some feedback on our first attempts at revisions with the committee in the whole. To me, I've had a chance to talk to some of the board members, and I think we all feel there's a learning curve, and we're just learning how to do things differently than what we have done for many years. But that I think the two things that I've heard from board members are it does help drive board engagement in the process. And the other thing is that most people have said it's a pretty positive experience so far. We know that we have a lot of fine tuning to do. And actually one of the assignments that the Board Governance Committee, which includes the committee chairs, one of our assignments is to establish the guidelines for how those committees will function and how they will present. So that's an important discussion that has yet to be happen. So I would just ask for two things. One, I would ask board members to follow up with Mr. Siegel about the ideas that he has talked about and sent you an email about regarding the board's speaking bureau and the lobbying efforts. And also ask that you follow up with Mrs. McCulloch's request for board feedback on the committee chair process and presentations. And I would ask if either of you two have any comments you want to mention about your committees or anything you wanted to add to that. No? Okay. Ms. McCulloch? Okay, very good. So we will now then move on to the consent portion of our meeting, which includes the items previewed by the board committee chairs during the committee of the whole meeting last week. And these are the payroll, accounts payable, purchase orders, construction bid request log, Cisco SmartNet renewal, recurring contract for ESL endorsement through Olivet, the RPS 205 and Power School Group LLC, the consent items from the Planning and Development Committee for the UCCM Cisco phone system upgrade support and the units of study writing videos, and the consent items from the Governance Committee, including the meeting minutes of September 22nd, Standing Committee overview minutes from 9/22 for the regular board meeting, and the contract purchase orders and the Freedom of Information log. Is there a motion and a second to approve these consent items?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor.
Second.
Second by Mr. Siegel. Any consent items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, then I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of the consent items.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch? Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. We are now on to the closed session consent agenda items, including the appointment of Courtney Gray as a 10-month middle school assistant principal at Kennedy Middle School, the appointment of Solomon Badu as a 12-month non-certified special education program administrator, and the HR organization report and addendum, and the closed session consent items for student discipline. Student 2050, the expulsion is held in advance contingent upon an EIA agreement for the entire 2021 school year, and the following students are receiving EIAs. They are student 8192, 8193, 8194, and 8197. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent session consent items?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor. For a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Siegel. Are there any closed session consent items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of the closed session consent items.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch? Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford? Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Mrs. McCulloch.
Trying real hard to turn this off, but it doesn't.
Okay.
know what- I don't know what
You
to
need a
do.
wire cutters? That'll work. Okay. Okay. Well, that's all right. Okay.
Call on me.
Doesn't want to shut off, huh? There it goes. Okay. So we are now on to board member action steps, and I've written down 3. That one is to give feedback and ideas to Mr. Siegel, who chairs the public, it's not public relations, it's, there you go, that one, okay. Regarding the Speakers Bureau and the lobbyists, and to follow up with feedback from Mrs. McCulloch from her email about the request ideas on the process of presentations for committee reports. And then the third one is the feedback for Dr. Jarrett from us, board members, regarding the CEO-centric targets that he has distributed to us so that he can finish up his goals. So, Mrs. McCulloch, did you have?
Did turn it on.
Okay, go right ahead. You.
I noticed on the agenda that in September our board member comments came after petitions, and tonight it moved. Who made that choice and why?
Mrs. Holy put the agenda together.
Moved where board member comments are. Last meeting in September, they were after petitions and communication, and tonight you've got them earlier.
Oh, I don't think I paid that much attention on where your comments went, so I can move them back.
There must be, I thought there
Sorry.
might be a reason.
That wasn't an intentional.
Okay, so there wasn't a reason. And secondly, Mr. Scrivano, one of the reasons is I wanted to say that I appreciated the remarks from petitions. Member would like some follow-up as to why that's happening. My understanding was that secondary teachers, if they were teaching remote, were teaching remote, and in-person were in-person, and so to try to double team a teacher to do that, that deserves some explanation. And
I'm going to turn to Mrs. Detman, who probably can best answer that.
I have a lot of follow-up questions that I'd like to ask just to really gain clarity around how the teachers maybe are interpreting the guidance and to better understand what's happening. I'd have a hard time speaking to it because I haven't experienced it with those teachers or had the conversation.
might I add, I wasn't looking for it here. I was
Sure.
looking for a follow-up.
Yes.
And to find out how much, you know, how that is happening throughout the district. Is that just, because for a parent to come in with positive, constructive
Yep.
thoughts, and also to say, I just pulled my child from the district, it's disconcerting. We don't need to lose more students.
Correct.
So
Yes.
if we could find out what's going on and why.
We've already followed up to a certain degree with the school in terms of we've received the information and followed up with the principal, but we'll certainly make sure we understand.
I do know that she emailed both Aaron and me earlier in the week. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but she did identify what was going well and what was not going well and whatever. So I know that Dr. Jarrett's aware of her issues and concerns. And I appreciate greatly that she has offered herself to sit in and give guidance or help out in any way that she can, you know, as a parent, you know, so.
And I think that reaching out and having, nobody wants to be on more committees, but having a group of parents tell us what's working or not working, which is especially positive input or even negative. I mean, we can't always just hear the good things. What is not working? What do we need to, not that we don't know, but it helps to alliterate, and also there are probably things that we aren't aware of that are happening. And what is it like school to school? You said you followed up at that school.
Yeah, and I can say, as a parent in the district as well, I'm experiencing some of this firsthand, and I think now that we are beyond the initial getting our legs under us to get the school year started, we're starting to see routine and habit established, which gives us the opportunity to get a better look at what's really going on across the district. So now is the time for this reflection and digging deeper into practices that are happening in each school. So I appreciate the deep level of feedback and commitment that we've received, and certainly it deserves follow-up.
We keep waiting.
And I do know that Dr. Jarrett has gotten back to her once, and so I think we'll need to do that again as well, I would say. Okay, yeah. Yeah. I would just ask at this time, are there any other board action items that we need to think about that I didn't list? Okay, if there are no further comments or agenda recommendations by the board, I'll take a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor.
Second.
By Mr. Siegel. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned at 7:22.